Alright guys, welcome to your 11th MySQL tutorial, and in this lesson what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking a look at some advanced filtering using the AND keyword and the OR keyword. So let's go ahead and make a simple statement. Say select the name, state, and we'll also select the city from customers where, and say we want to do this. We want to select the customers that live in California, and they also must live in Hollywood, because there are a lot of different places to live in California, but we want to say, okay, if you live in California and furthermore you live in Hollywood, those are the customers you want. So let's go ahead and put state equals, and remember, whenever we're working with text, we need to put it in between quotation marks, and we also want the city to be Hollywood. Hopefully I spelled that right. Hollywood. So basically what we can do is we already know that we can filter the results using a where statement and then making a test. But if we want both tests to be true, then we need to add a keyword called and that only filters the results where this condition and this condition are true. So let's go ahead and let me just copy this, run it, and check it out. So not only does Jack Nicholson live in California, but he also lives in Hollywood. Now, the rest of the database, of course, other people live in California, but since they don't also live in Hollywood, then that also isn't true. And what if there is another Hollywood somewhere else, like, I don't know, Idaho, or maybe there's a Hollywood in New York? Well, that also wouldn't be true because those people didn't live in California. So basically, just remember this. It's basically the same as, plain English. Whenever you say and, both the first and the second thing must be true. So let's go ahead and take a look at the keyword or. Now, if we go ahead and select name, state, and city from customers, where I'll do something like city equals Boston, or I might as well stick with California. State equals CA. Then remember I said last time whenever you use and, then this test and this test must be true. Whenever we run this query and we go ahead and hit go, then check it out. Either the first test or the second test need to be true. So they don't both need to be true, just one or the other. So that's the difference between and or. Whenever you use and, all of the tests need to be true. Whenever you use or, only one of them need to be true. So of course, you're saying, okay, why do we get this? California, but it isn't Boston. It's because as long as someone lives in California or Boston, it's going to give us the results. And what if you're saying, okay, what if someone lived in Boston, California, even though that isn't in place? Well, that still would return the results because it's either one of them. It's basically like this. Whenever this one's true or this one's true, or if they're both true, then whenever you're using an or, then it's going to return that result. Now, the last thing I want to touch on is this. Sometimes you're going to get kind of weird queries or orders, maybe from your boss or teacher. Let me go ahead and type you guys something weird that I'm going to just type it because if I try to explain it, it's going to be really hard to explain. Okay, select, and let me think of something. ID, name, and city from customers where ID equals 1, we don't need parentheses for that, or ID equals 2, so that makes sense, and city equals Raleigh. Okay, so what, maybe your boss comes in and says, okay, we want to find someone whose ID is 1 or 2 and they live in Raleigh. So, for example, if my ID was 1 or 2 and I lived in Raleigh, then that's what we would be looking for. So let me go ahead and read this, and it's going to say, okay, my ID is 1 or 2, but what's going on here? Bucky Roberts doesn't live in Raleigh, so why is that selecting Bucky Roberts? Because what we were trying to say is, okay, make sure that the person has an ID of 1 or 2, which was true, and they must live in Raleigh. So if you scroll down here, you're saying, okay, something went wrong here because, of course, Bucky Roberts has an ID of 1, but we said and they must live in Raleigh, and that wasn't the case. So what's going on is this. Whenever MySQL is going to read this, it's going to read it in left to right fashion. So it's going to say, okay, basically it's going to say anyone with the ID of 1 or anyone with the ID of 2 that lives in Raleigh. Okay, but that's not what we wanted. We wanted someone with the ID of 1 or 2 and someone who lives in Raleigh. So basically, it gets kind of confusing, but I'm going to show you guys what we wanted and what MySQL was looking at. We wanted something like this. We wanted someone with the ID of 1 or 2, and we also wanted them to live in Raleigh. But whenever MySQL read this, it said, okay, I wanted someone with the ID of 1 or someone with the ID of 2 and City of Raleigh. So that's another thing I want to point out. Whenever you have something complicated that use multiple or and statements, make sure that you use parentheses, because let me go ahead and put parentheses around this. So now when we say, okay, MySQL, this is how we meant it. Sorry for confusing you. I want someone with the ID of 1 or 2. Okay, you got that? And they must also live in Raleigh. So since Bucky doesn't live in Raleigh, he would be excluded from this result. So now when I use parentheses and go ahead and run this query, we get a different result. Noah is the only person with the ID of either 1 or 2, and he also lives in Raleigh. So again, one last time, whenever you have multiple or and statements, please make sure to use parentheses. And this pretty much is very important whenever you're using where with a filter. So that's all I want to point out. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next lesson.